go ahead and go into some outfitting things. I've got two boats here that I'll be showing you. This is a Waka Stout Creek boat, and this is a small Piranha Ripper. Oh, also, make sure you wear your river shoes while you're outfitting your kayak so you know what's going to fit. All right, the first thing I'm going to start with for outfitting is hip pads. And that's most often what a lot of ladies will start with. However, I tend to think that they are less important than a lot of other outfitting that you can do to your boat. But if you're having any issues with your legs going numb or any cramping in your hips or hamstrings, it's probably because your hip pads are a little bit too tight. So I made this really incredible drawing. Please forgive my artwork here. And this is just to illustrate your hip pads. So you can see here, this kind of looks like a man's butt, skinny and not much for hips. And typically, if you just hop in any guy's boat, you're gonna have too much pressure pressing in on your butt cheeks, and it's gonna make your legs go numb right away. So if you have bigger hips, don't be afraid to pull those hip pads up so that it gives your cheeks room to spread out so that you don't get numb. And let me show you what I've got going on in my two boats in regard to that. So this Waka came with some decent hip pads. Most of the older Wakas did not. And with every boat, it's gonna vary quite a bit on what you get. Some hip pads are great, some are terrible. And don't be afraid to take out your hip pads and make your own if that's what you need to do. So you can see, hopefully, that the Velcro in this starts way down here. And when I got these hip pads, they were stuck all the way down into there. So what I did is just move these hip pads up about 3 inches from where they came. And my butt sits in there pretty nicely, and I'm not too tight in that. I'll show you in my Piranha over here. This is a hip pad that kills me every time. I've got these hip pads down low just to show you how it could be uncomfortable, where it squeezes your cheeks at the bottom and cuts off circulation. And I've shown over on this side, hopefully you can see, bear with me, I'm kind of using my phone. But if you move these straps up above the seat band or the back band here, that'll help keep them a little bit higher. And this one is still below, so I haven't moved that one quite yet. Not sure if anybody can see that. So this boat, it does have Velcro, but I don't typically, it doesn't stick that well. The fabric is too stretchy. So this is one that I've considered just making my own hip pads, but instead I usually just get in and pull them up really high. And that might end up being a couple inches above your cockpit. Your skirt will squash them down a little bit, but they'll be up above your hips once you get in. So hip pads. And then for any ladies out there with bigger hips, don't be afraid to just pull your hip pads all the way out. Your hip pads are not what's keeping you in your boat. And if you do take those out, you can always build just a little bit of hip pad that goes kind of right above your thigh here so that it doesn't have to cut off your circulation on your butt. And that'd be a build your own with mini cell foam type of deal. So that's hip pads. Let me move on to the next thing that will help your legs from going numb, and that is heel blocks. And heel blocks will actually change the ergonomics of your boat quite a bit. I've got another hand-drawn diagram here. Pretty funny. All right, so hip pads, or heel blocks, sorry. So on your bulkhead here, inside your kayak, if your feet are flat against your bulkhead, then you're not gonna have a whole lot of, you're gonna be more straight-legged. And if you put heel blocks in, it'll get your heel off the edge and push your legs up into the thigh braces a little bit easier. Also, that can reduce that numb feeling in your legs by pulling your legs off the edge of your seat up a little bit higher. And then we'll talk about filling that gap a little bit later. So the heel blocks not only make your boat a little bit more ergonomic, but they also tend to keep you from going numb. And if you piton your boat, you can also get some ankle injuries. I think Teresa can speak from experience there. And I luckily can't yet, but know a lot of people that have injured their feet and ankles from pitoning their boats, and those heel blocks help to protect you. So let me go back into one of these kayaks and pull out my example of a heel block. The Waka
Sorry,
here.
what does pitoning mean?
Pitoning is when you go fast into a rock, and usually it'll dent the bow of your boat if you piton hard enough. And you can piton at any angle. You can do it straight into a rock. You can do it off of a waterfall if you land on rocks. If you're a climber at all, you know the term piton from banging a piton into the rock. So it's just smashing your bow into a rock. All right. So we'll go into the boat here. It's a little bit dark, so I'm just gonna pull out my bulkhead. All right, so here's piece number one. I've got a little Velcro on here to keep this block in. Every boat's gonna have a different bulkhead. This Waka in particular did not have a great bulkhead system. I can show you inside, hopefully it'll show up. But just a terrible small block that I felt I could have stuck my foot through. So to make it more comfortable, warmer, and less dangerous, I just built myself this big block out of foam. And you can see my heel blocks here are actually pretty substantial. So inside my boat, my feet are at quite a bit of an angle, and that presses my knees up into my thigh braces. So right now I've just got it taped because I just made a new one because I lost one out of my boat while it was on the roof the other day. So I haven't decided how I want it, so I haven't glued it yet. But that's that heel block. And inside the Piranha, grab my headlamp so hopefully you can see inside. That's my heel block inside my Piranha. This bulkhead goes all the way across because so I can make one big heel block all the way across. Typically, I'll start with 2 inches and add from there. And it seems like a lot, but it's pretty comfortable. And that's what a few people have taught me to do, and I've built from there.
Monica, you
Yep.
You broke up when you were talking about that for one sec. How were you able to go all the way across? Did the boat didn't have a barrier?
Yeah, so in most of these newer Piranhas, this is a Ripper. It's got just a plastic pillar in the middle instead of a big foam pillar like my Waka.
Right.
So that pillar in the middle being plastic, I guess, is somehow more rigid, and they don't put it all the way back. So that foot plate that I'm resting my feet on just goes all the way across. Whereas in the Waka, I've got 2 separate sides where my feet go. I'll try to show you again with my headlamp here. Can you see that okay? There's my pillar.
Yeah.
And then I've got all that space in between and just one big foot block all the way across.
Yeah, and you side for your metal thing on the side. It just really speaks to the need to be drinking alcohol while doing this.
Yeah, it's I spent probably 2 hours cutting out this foot plate for this boat today. And yeah, alcohol was helpful, but so is the steak knife, and it's hard to get it just the exact size on these things. Tape measure helps. You can kind of measure across and then up and down and get a pretty good idea, but then you have to leave maybe a little bit more room if you plan on backing that bulkhead up a little bit or pulling it forward. So it does take some time to get it. Steel block?
Hey, Annika, I always take a piece of cardboard and cut the footprint before I go into the foam nightmare.
Oh yeah, I did think of that today and then forgot about it and couldn't find enough cardboard. But that's a great tip. Yeah, and it's gonna end up a lot less frustrating than if you just measure it and cut. So yeah, it's a good tip. Any other questions on the heel blocks?
Can you show that photo one more time of the drawings?
Sure. Yeah. All right, there it is. So if your feet are flat, it's going to be less comfortable and push your thighs into your seat a little more. And you're not going to be contacting your thigh hook quite as well. Whereas the heel block under your heels is going to push your knees up. And it's just, for me, it's a little bit more comfortable. And then it makes your thigh braces work a little bit better too.
I feel the need to mention that about, I don't know, just about 3 minutes too late into your talk, Annika, it became clear to me that your talk was going to be amazing. And I pushed the record button.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Good.
and I guess two things. I should have asked your permission if it's okay to record this.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then to others, just know that it's being recorded. So if you have questions about things, you can go back and look. Okay, back to you.
All right. So let's move on to.
Can I ask a hip pad question too?
Yeah, sure.
So on the hip pad, I'd kind of done like the same thing, but I have to like kind of hold the hip pad up and kind of like, you know, get into it. If you kind of do the tie around the seat too, does that prevent it? Because like if you're, you know, if you have a portage or something and it's a little, you know, it's like a little spicy as you're getting in the boat, sometimes I kind of get stuck in the wrong spot.
Yeah, it depends on the boat and what you have. And sometimes if you take that strap and go above your band strap, it helps, but it doesn't necessarily keep it there. I would say in my Piranha boats, it hasn't helped a ton, but a little bit. And with those, I've been a little bit lazy with the hip pads and I haven't built my own and glued them on there. Instead, every time I get in my boat, I just make sure I pull them up really high while I get in, which is a little bit annoying. You can also use tape and just Gorilla tape them up in the position you want. And you can tape over your cockpit combing to keep them in that position too. And the other option then is to go ahead and build your own out of mini silk foam and just glue them on there with contact cement. Yeah, all right. And let's move on to your seat. So I think different boats have different seat issues. Some do it really well. Dagger is one of those boats that the seat is just really comfortable. It's got the ratchet in the middle for the leg lifters, and there's not going to be a whole lot you have to do other than positioning. And positioning is a pretty personal thing depending on your boat too. I suggest moving it around and seeing where you want it before you go ahead and build the rest of your outfitting, because that's going to change things. So find out where your boat paddles the best and keep your seat there, and then build on it from there. So I'm going to go and show you my Waka seat, and I believe that this seat for me works really well, nearly as good as a Dagger boat. But what it's got here is this big rise in the crotch area. I believe that, Dagger did a good job of it. Perception back in the day had something called the Pleasure Pod, which I've heard different names, crotch booster, Pleasure Pod. But either way, creating a little rise in your seat between your legs gives you a lot more comfort and contact with your seat. So that can make it, it can give you quite a bit more boat control. And it seems like a silly thing from Teresa Greider, Grundle Burner. That's a good name as well. So yeah, I do like that. Here's how I deal with it in boats that don't have a good one already built. I'll show you my Piranha here, and I haven't taped this in yet. If you have a Piranha boat, don't be fooled by these screws. They're not actually screws. You have to cut them out. And I usually just cut this first one out. And inside I put this. I made this out of that cheap blue foam and a little bit of duct tape. It took, less than 5 minutes to make it. And this is the Grundle Burner crotch booster Pleasure Pod that you find in those boats. So you can just put that underneath your seat pad and just tape it in. And then it gives you a lot more contact with your seat. A couple other things that you can do with your seat, if it's not giving you a lot of contact, is build or use a foam wedge. I didn't have any wedges, so I sort of made one out of the blue foam. And you can go ahead and put these underneath your seat pad as well. So those can just go underneath and lift up your legs if needed. Once again, I like tape for those because that's a pretty personal thing. Those aren't going to fall out as easily when they're under your seat pad. So those work pretty well. And with those leg lifters, NRS also makes a pretty good pack of foam that if you're dealing with a lot of outfitting issues, I'd suggest buying that kit. It comes with some really nice contoured leg lifters that you can either glue to the outside of your seat or you might be able to put them under your seat pad, but they're pretty nice either way. Let's see, any questions about seats and that sort of thing? All right, let's move on to what I think is my favorite part of outfitting that most kayak companies don't do well, but a couple do, and that is the thigh blocks. So there's a couple companies, Wave Sport is one of them, and the older versions of the Waka Tuna and Tutea have a nice contoured pad that goes over your thigh. And I have another terrible drawing for you gals. Find it here.
Your drawings are great. I love them.
Thank you. All right, this is kind of a funny looking one. So imagine cutting through your kayak. This is a cross-section view of your thigh hook area. And these circles are your legs. So inside, when you're sitting in your kayak, you have usually a thigh hook here that gives you control of the boat, but then you've got all this space between your leg and your in your bulkhead. So that can cause a few issues with fit. A lot of times for me, it jams my kneecaps straight up into the bulkhead. I know people that have peed on their boats and actually injured their kneecaps because they have too much space here. So what I do is foam out that space. And I'll show you what I have in my boats for that. So I start with a block of mini cell foam, like this one here. It's just a 6x6 block. And then I cut it, bam, like that. And now I've got a nice contoured space for my leg. And I can put this extra foam on the outside of that to create this nice piece. Then I'm gonna go into my kayak here. Let me grab my headlamp so you can see. And this is a good one to eventually glue in. These are new, so I've just got them taped. And you can see that nice curve that locks my thigh in to the boat. So I've got my heel blocks pushing my legs and knees up into here. And I've got all this space. My kneecap usually ends up somewhere in this area, just barely off the bulkhead. So it ends up being a pretty comfortable contoured thing. We've got some in this Piranha as well. So once again, just a bunch of foam and duct tape can really make a big difference in that thigh hook. So you don't have to get too fancy with this. You don't even have to use that mini cell if you don't have it. A lot of times I'll just end up with a whole bunch of hip shims taped together like this, and I'll just tape them to the inside. Here's an example of that. Once again, lots of foam, lots of duct tape, just taped right in. So that keeps your thighs into your thigh hooks. It is possible on boats with shallower thigh hooks, like this Piranha without the hooker thigh grips. They're a little shallow. If you go too aggressive with the foam, it can push your legs out of them a little bit too easy. But on these boats with a more aggressive hook, like the Wakas, you get a little bit more control, and it pushes your legs in there. It's pretty comfortable. So that's about it for the thigh blocks. Does anybody have questions on those?
I have a quick question. I've never seen the Waka. Will you go back to that? That was so super aggressive.
They are, yeah. So this is the, it's hard to see and point at the same time. So that's a pretty aggressive hook there on these ones. And you can shave if anybody has a Waka here, you can shave these down if they're too much for you.
Contrasted to the Zet kayaks, which are not aggressive at all. So, do you have any experience in actually creating the hook?
I do, yeah. I had an old Wave Sport playboat that didn't have the thigh hooks in it for a while, and I created my own. This is let me pull a little bit of duct tape off here so you can see it. They went from thigh hook to many other purposes in their life. But yeah, I just made it once again out of mini cell foam, and that goes right over my leg like that. Without it, obviously didn't have the blue foam back then, but you can see how you can create your own. I've seen people do that with Jackson kayaks quite a bit as well. Jackson, they typically have a lower deck on them, so you have to either pull out the padding that's there because the way that their boats work is your kneecaps are pretty much jammed up into the bulkhead on a Jackson. So what I've seen some people do is pull the padding out completely. I even have a friend that adds her Wave Sport thigh braces and just bolts them straight into the Jackson. And I also have friends that that just create these thigh hooks and thigh braces, and it makes a little bit better thigh hook for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey, Annika, I have a
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with the heel blocks,
Mhm.
or the foot blocks, heel blocks, as well as the more aggressive thigh hook arrangement, do you sometimes get it so tight that you can't release and get out of the boat?
No, I haven't personally ever had an issue getting out of my boat when I really want to.
Okay. All right.
I think that if you were to use really aggressive, stiff foam, it might be a little bit harder. The foam that I've gotten here is fairly soft, maybe even softer than I'd like, but it's pretty easy to push out of it. I keep my my bulkhead pretty close and tight when I'm in harder whitewater. And then for paddling out, say that like the main salmon off the South Fork, I just backed up my bulkhead a little bit and just gave myself a little bit more room to be comfortable. But I haven't ever had an issue getting out when I want to. I think
Because with the heel blocks, normally, like when I use foot pegs in the canoe,
Mhm.
my foot is flexed, and then to get out, I just push the heel back. And in
Yeah.
this case, you can't push your heel back because you got the heel block there.
Yeah, I'd say it's squishy enough that it's probably not going to be a problem.
Okay.
It is, you do have to push fairly hard. You're not going to come out, you're not going to fall out of your boat if you are unconscious or something. And you do have to actively push, but I'll try to show you on my Waka. It is a pretty tight boat. Let me just set my phone. You can see what I'm talking about. All right. Try that again. So getting in here, my hips into the blocks. And so right now I'm contacting the heel blocks. My knees are, roughly equal with the edge of my cockpit rim. And I can just push and wiggle into those thigh hooks. And these are about as aggressive as a thigh hook as you'll find on any kayak. But I'm locked in. I don't have much play, but as soon as I want to get out, it just takes a little bit of force to pop my knee out. But I like to be pretty tight in my boats.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess, I'm just looking at my notes here. I think that covers most of the fit stuff that I had. Just a couple of things for travel tips that I've learned. Depending on your kayak and how easy it is to get out your front bulkhead, you might want to look into making like a removable foot block, like I've done in this boat, which I already showed. Pull it out again. So these little dangly straps that I've made have Velcro on them, and these keep my foam inside my cockpit. And it's if I get stuck in a violent hole, they might still pop out, but hopefully I'll avoid losing them on the road like I did the other day. So Velcro straps to keep them in. Another thing is some boats have a really nice way to get into your back band and into the stern of your boat. Some boats do not. This Waka has some nice hooks that make it really easy. So I'm trying to point it in the right place. And those just pop right off of my back band. And it folds down. sorry, there we go, to get in there. Some modifications I've made on piranha boats when I have them. These little hooks here, I haven't done it on this boat because I'm never gonna self-support out of my ripper, I don't think. Is you can pop the elastic out of the other side of these. There's just tied in a little knot there. And if you just pop those out and replace that with a very small carabiner, you can easily get in and out of your piranha boats. And then for traveling to other countries, something I always do is bring in just one of these big blue foam sleeping pads, because I know I can create just about anything out of that. So if you buy one of these blue foam pads like this, carry a roll of Gorilla Tape and some scissors. I've made hip pads out of that by just taking a long strip and rolling the tops down to create that hook over my thigh. I've created these. I'm pretty sure these came with me to Chile, or came from Chile. I made them there in my waka there. You can build those and slap them on the bulkhead to create those thigh blocks. And I've also made heel blocks out of them. So when you're traveling to go kayaking somewhere and you're renting a boat, you can make just about any boat fit while you travel. So I think that's about all I have for everything. Are there any other outfitting questions out there?
That was awesome.
Great. And do we still have Jenny Goldberg joining us for some tips too?
I've been trying to raise her. She's still logged in.
Oh, I see.
Are you here?
Hi.
Jenny!
I don't know if I have a whole lot to add. I just have my own issues. I would reiterate though that what Anika said was, I think it's to save some frustration. It is most important to start with where your seat is. Like, there's no sense in putting in all this fancy foam if you haven't decided where you want your seat. Because where the seat is, not only fore and aft, but up and down. Because I found that it depends. I'm on the short side and of my huge verticality, it's mostly in my legs. And so all these boats, I feel like my elbows are hitting the deck. So it's kind of tricky though. The higher up you go, the more unstable you are. Kind of depends on the boat and how much you weigh. You want it to perform in the water correctly. But I found once I did all this work trying to outfit it, and then I realized, I need to move the seat up. I moved the seat up, love the performance, but I didn't fit in the boat anymore. It makes a huge difference how the shape of your heel block is and actually where all those other blocks are and after. So that's one thing I would add, that kind of think sort of stepwise. I think the only other thing is I'm terrible at it, but I have friends who are really good at it. But once you get the shape you want, get one of those, what do you call them? Dragon teeth? Two teeth?
Oh yeah.
Or little metal sanders, like sandpaper, only it's metal teeth, whatever you call them.
It's like a lemon zester almost.
Yeah.
It's called
lemon zester. That would probably work better than my old one that I have. And really round and sand the edges, and that takes off any little tiny pressures, particularly if you've got a funny shape to one side or the other. And in fact, sometimes I like to start, I'm going to make the block just a little too big and not cut it down, but sand it down, because that takes off. This is if you're like uber fussy. That's me. So that finer centimeter work, I find those sanders something to add to the list of tools that that Anika very carefully laid out. And I for one get so tired of I put some foam in there and then I get to get all the way out of the boat and then I reshape it and I put the foam in and I get in and I go, oh, that sucks. And then I got to get out of the boat, or I'm sitting in the boat and I go, oh, I need the perfect piece and I can't reach it, which means I got to get out of the boat. So I personally keep my scraps and all my foam just like a little kid, all carefully laid out around the boat. So I can sit there, grab something and shove it under my thighs and go, oh, that feels okay, rather than get out of the boat, go get the foam and go, oh, how thick did I want that? Anyway, that's my 2 cents. I hate outfitting, but it's very critical.
I know, I do too, and I was gonna mention that the sandpaper and sanding it down, and I'm just I'm kind of a quick and dirty outfitter, but I definitely get what you're saying, and I usually just sit in my boat and grab the pieces of foam and shove them in there, and then a lot of times I'll just take my Sharpie and like reach between my legs, and, kind of mark where I want it, and then also try to like wiggle out of my boat while still holding on to it, and then like hopefully glue it or tape it before I lose where it was. And I agree, it's a difficult thing to get down. And
okay, well, I really just want you to know that I feel a whole lot better that somebody else does it that way as well.
Yeah.
And I always like I won't sand it and I won't glue it until I've taped it and gone out and spent an entire day in it, because it feels fabulous in the basement. Oh, it's so perfect. And 15 minutes into the run, I'm in agony. So, just if you just accept that fact that it might be an iterative process and you can handle it a little better.
Yeah, definitely.
Or you can do what I do, which is I don't outfit my boats. I barely even adjust the foot pegs.
Some people can handle it. I can't. I can handle almost anything but having my kneecaps shoved against the bulkhead, which is probably why I've never actually owned a Jackson boat.
But Shannon just installed the new Piranha hookers in her boat. Mm-hmm. Do you love them, Shannon?
Sorry, the phone is sitting on the laptop. So yeah, I do like them. They're not very aggressive. I could roll them in and they could look more like a Waka, but I just needed like half an inch more to hold my knee, or to make my knee feel like it was still in there. So I have the Jackson thigh pad along the edge of the boat because it's a Machno and I don't like my kneecaps to hit the boat. So there's that, and then there's the hooker. And there's a little bit of foam on the hooker. I haven't done much more than that. And then I also have heel blocks in mine. So.
Yeah. I hopped in somebody's Piranha with the hooker grips and really loved it. And I think I've gotten used to having that aggressive hook from my Waka. And I find that I have a little bit of trouble getting my thigh blocks in just the right spot without the hookers, to where they're keeping my kneecaps off the edge and pushing me into the thigh blocks. But also, if you have a shallow thigh grip like those original ones, it almost pushes me out. So that's something I've had to play with a bit. I'll probably buy some to keep my ripper.
Yeah.
I have a Waka question. I hear a lot of people put a foam underneath the seat. Have you done that on Waka?
I haven't. That's something that I'm going to try. at some point. I don't know if you can put foam. Oh, wait, sorry. I might have misunderstood you. You mean underneath the seat itself, not underneath your butt?
Yeah, like the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, definitely a good idea. Wakas are pretty easy to get the seat out and move the seat around. There's just a couple of bolts. I'll try to show you. Let's see.
Is the point of this foam to prevent oil canning?
Yeah, so Wakas have notoriously terrible plastic, unfortunately. It seems like they fixed that problem this year, but adding that inch or two of foam underneath your seat can help you, can help that from oil canning. I've noticed that if I hit a rock underneath my butt, I'll feel it like press up into the seat. So I think it's kind of important for these particular boats.
Yeah, it seems like it's really thin between like the seat and the boat because I've never like felt a rock underneath me and like yeah, like you can feel it, like you'll hit it and you're like, ooh.
Yeah, I have a piece. I just haven't installed it yet. That was something.
So you use like the sleeping pad for that?
You could, but if you can find a denser block, that would probably be better. Even denser than this other gray mini cell that I've been using. I've seen some foam at the stores. It's black. It's just a little bit stiffer. And I think the stiffer you can get it, the better probably. Then it won't flex quite as much. Yeah.
So I have a friend who has gone through a few Wakas. He actually takes the seat out and glues in a yoga mat under the seat. So I would use the sticky sided closed celled foam.
Yeah.
Because I don't want any more weight in my boat. But
yeah.
The glued in yoga mat kept him afloat with a 9-inch crack in his tuna. So
yeah.
that's a safety measure, maybe.
For sure. I know Teresa posted a really nice little repair kit that she carries of Gorilla Tape and a heat gun. And I think that's a really good way to go because you can get that tape off. I've also seen a 9-inch crack in a Waka on a self-support trip, and we used Bitchathane to patch it, and it worked great. Never leaked again. But you'll never get it off. But on the other hand, if it's a huge crack, and I've seen all boats crack. I've seen piranhas and daggers, and any boat can crack. So if you are on a long self-support trip where a catastrophic failure would mean a long walk out, then you might want to carry a roll of Bitchathane or another repair kit like Teresa G had. Cool. Any more questions about outfitting?
Yeah. So when I'm winter paddling versus when I'm summer paddling, I have different gear on, and so I kind of adjust my outfitting for winter versus summer. Does anybody else do that? I'm just curious.
I definitely do. I'll remove hip pads and maybe even a little bit of thigh block foam if I'm wearing a lot of layers. I'll usually take at least a one shim out of each thigh if I'm wearing my dry suit and a bunch of layers under it. And then once summer rolls around, I'll usually put those back in. And it might also depend on what kind of shoes you're wearing. If you tend to wear bigger, thicker, clunkier shoes, you might want to reduce the size of your heel blocks in the winter. But otherwise, yeah, I think the hip pads are really where that comes in.
Thanks.
Yeah. Anybody else? Well,
if there are truly no more questions, I just want to say, Annika, did you just school us for 50 minutes on how to outfit our boats from your iPhone?
I don't have a computer, so yeah.
Your presentation was so great. It was so great. I desperately drive to Montana and hold the iPhone for you so that you can, show us every little part and piece. Wow, Teresa, nice work recruiting Annika and Jenny. Really.
I knew it was going to be good. Thank you. Thank you so
Can't
much.
wait to see everybody's boat. It's like, wait, let me look in your boat.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say my most recent outfitting innovation in my own boat was my butt hurts all the time because there's not enough padding there on my butt or in the boat. And so I've started sitting on my sponge and it works.
Not two sponges?
No, just one. In the middle, in the back for my tailbone.
Sometimes at the boat stations, I don't know if you guys have those out by you, but sometimes at the boat check stations in Montana and Idaho, they'll give you sponges. That's like the only bonus of actually stopping at those things.
Wow, I've never had anybody give me a sponge.
Yeah. I've only gotten a ticket for not stopping.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't want to buy those in Idaho for sure.
Oh my. Well, Teresa, I don't know how you distributed word of this phenomenal presentation.
I know, but check out all the women.
Well, that's just it. So I was just to say, having now, realized, oh my God, this is about to be amazing, and pushed record. I guess I would just say, what if you want the recording? What would be the way to?
I don't know. What would you do, Annika? Put it on YouTube?
You're asking the wrong millennial here. Once again, I don't even own a computer, but I think maybe YouTube. I know I posted this to the Ladies of the Whitewater Community Facebook page, and that might be how a bunch of women showed up. Okay. So we posted it on there, but you'd still have to link it somewhere. I'm not really sure how it works. So
let's do this.
Somebody else has an idea. Speak up.
I was just, well, how about at a minimum, I will share the link with Teresa and with Annika and with Jenny, because the three of you are probably the folks that invited people to join the conversation. So you'll know who to share it back out with, either through Facebook, Annika, because that's where you posted it, or Teresa, you could just send the link over email to folks. But I'm still looking forward to part 2.
What's part 2?
Where exactly, like Sue said, then we all are like, look at my boat. No, look at my boat. No, look at my boat. But hopefully
that'll go on a paddling trip.
Yeah, in person. Be so much better. Yeah. Yeah. So that's COVID assignment is boats super duper outfitted so that when COVID is over and we celebrate with the big river trip, we can show off our outfitting.
Sounds great.
Right.
Good plan.
Annika and Teresa.
All right. Well, thank you for hosting this,
Thank
Deborah.
You all. Thanks for coming. Good to see all your faces.
And thank you to everybody else that joined. And hit me up or hit up, remind me of her name, Jenny, again, if anybody has any more questions. I'm happy to try to help. So,
yeah, right. We already have.
Oh, you know what? I just thought of one more thing.
Oh,
this is the blue. You know how you want to, like you were saying, you want to put a little shim under your thigh to bring your legs up to meet the knee pads.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that it took me a while to learn, but depending on how big what boat it is, usually when they're really big, because I want a lot of room for self-support, I find that I'm still not really reaching the knee braces. I end up to reach it, forcing my leg to bend too much. And I got this really weird pain in my hip, not from, I had no hip pads. I had plenty of space there. And I finally figured out what it was. You can have your leg, you want your leg bent, you don't want it straight. But if you still have some weird pain, you might experience what I did was I tried to push it up too high. And what I ended up having to do was add foam on the knee pad to bring the knee pad closer to me, because these huge volume boats were way too big for 105-pound Jenny. So if you're a small person and you have a bigger, you don't have this really dinky boat, that's just something to remember. It was just something it just took me a long time to figure out. Just wanted to share that.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. I think I've had to do that too, especially in this Waka. That's a pretty big volume boat. Is that the thigh pad? It helps push my leg down so that I'm not too bent, and that helps quite a bit. That's what those old Wave Sport thigh braces did really well. Is push your leg down a little bit. But yeah, thank you. Right. Well, I hope to see you all on the river sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot, Annika.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Bye.